Nobody teaches you this in school. You grow up learning math, history, how to conjugate verbs in a language you'll half forget. But nobody sits you down and says, the way you treat yourself in front of others becomes their instruction manual for how to treat you. Think about that. Every time you shrink, every time you say yes when every part of you means no, every time you over-explain, over-apologize, laugh off something that actually hurt, you're not just reacting, you're teaching, you're writing a quiet curriculum, one small moment at a time, and the people around you are taking notes, whether they realize it or not. Worth isn't a speech. It doesn't arrive in a dramatic moment where you finally stand up and declare yourself. It lives in the texture of ordinary days, in how long you wait before returning a message, in whether you finish the things you promised yourself, in the way you receive a compliment or absorb criticism, or walk into a room where you feel uncertain. 7 behaviors. That's all this is. 7 quiet things that people who are genuinely respected, not feared, not flattered, but respected, tend to do without making a show of it. Before we go further, if you're done letting people underestimate you, type "done" below. Say it out loud, even just here. You don't announce your worth, you demonstrate it, and it starts here. Behavior 1. You keep your word to yourself. There's a version of you that's made 100 quiet promises to yourself and broken most of them before Tuesday. You know the ones. I'll wake up earlier. I'll finish that. I'll stop letting that slide. Small commitments, private ones, the kind that nobody else even knows about, which is exactly why they matter so much. Here's the thing most people miss. The way you keep your word to yourself is the template for how you expect to be treated by others. When you consistently abandon your own commitments, when you let yourself down again and again, you're not just building a habit of inconsistency, you're training your nervous system to believe that your word doesn't quite mean what it says, and that belief seeps outward. People sense it, not in some mystical way, but in the most ordinary one. They watch what you do. They notice when your actions and your words live in different zip codes. Epictetus understood this at the root. Self-mastery isn't about discipline for its own sake. It's about becoming someone whose interior life matches their exterior one. A person whose yes means yes and whose no means no, starting with the promises they make in private. So when you follow through on the small thing you told yourself you'd do, the run you said you'd take, the conversation you said you'd have, the boundary you said you'd hold, you're not just completing a task, you're building evidence. Evidence that you are someone who can be trusted, first by yourself, and inevitably, almost automatically, by the people watching. Keep your word to yourself first. It sounds almost too simple, but it's the foundation everything else rests on. Break it quietly, and everything above it shifts. Honor it quietly, and something in you, and around you, becomes solid. Behavior 2. You don't over-explain. Notice what happens the next time you say no to something. Count the sentences that follow. Most people don't stop at one. They give a reason, then a backup reason, then a small apology wrapped around both of them, then a reassurance that they're not a bad person for declining. By the end, the no is buried so deep under qualifications that it barely exists anymore. Over-explaining is one of the most common ways people quietly signal that they don't fully trust their own decisions. It's a bid for approval disguised as information. And the people on the receiving end, consciously or not, pick up on exactly that. When you over-explain, you're communicating that your answer requires their acceptance in order to feel valid. You're handing them a small amount of power over your choices. And over time, they start to expect that power. The Japanese concept of me, the art of deliberate space, of what is left unsaid, captures something Western culture often rushes past. Silence, brevity, the clean edge of a complete sentence. These carry authority. They communicate that your decision was made with confidence and doesn't require a defense. This doesn't mean being cold. It doesn't mean becoming someone who drops one-word answers and walks away. Warmth and brevity can coexist beautifully. "I won't be able to make it, but I hope it goes well," is complete. It's kind. It's enough. The absence of 12 follow-up sentences isn't rudeness. It's self-assurance wearing quiet clothes. Start noticing where you over-explain. You'll find it's usually in the places where you don't yet fully trust yourself to be enough without justification. That's the real work, not crafting better explanations, but needing fewer of them, because when you trust your own answer, the explanation becomes optional, and the people around you will trust it too. Behavior 3. You let discomfort sit without fixing it. Most people are terrified of an unresolved moment. Silence falls in a conversation and they fill it. Someone seems upset and they immediately try to smooth it over. There's friction and they rush toward resolution, not because the moment is truly resolved, but because the discomfort of waiting feels unbearable. So they patch things. They apologize when they're not wrong. They soften truths that needed to land. They chase the feeling of okayness instead of the reality of it. And in doing so, they teach the people around them something important. Tension will always be relieved, and quickly, regardless of who caused it. Learning to let discomfort sit, without rushing in to fix it, absorb it, or disappear it, is one of the quietest forms of self-respect available to you. It says, "I trust this moment enough to let it be what it is. I am not so fragile that I need every sharp edge sanded down before I can breathe." Marcus Aurelius wrote about the discipline of not acting from anxiety, of responding to what actually requires a response, not simply to what feels urgent. Discomfort, almost always, is in the second category. It feels urgent. It rarely is. When you stop reflexively soothing every tense moment, something shifts in your relationships. People learn that the dynamic between you won't always bend in their direction simply because the air got heavy. They learn that your calm is real, not a performance, and not a fragility waiting to be exposed. They learn that you can hold hard moments without dissolving. That's not toughness for its own sake. It's steadiness. It's the quiet signal that says, "I am someone who can be in difficulty without needing to escape it." And the people who notice that, and they will notice, treat you accordingly. Behavior 4. You receive compliments without deflecting. Someone tells you that you did something well, and before they've finished the sentence, you're already deflecting. "Oh, it was nothing. Anyone could have done it. I actually almost messed the whole thing up, honestly." You laugh a little. You redirect. You make yourself smaller than the moment they just tried to give you. It feels like modesty. It's not. Or at least, it's rarely just modesty. More often, deflecting a compliment is a subtle rejection of the person offering it, as if their perception of you can't be trusted, as if their positive experience of your work or your presence is somehow mistaken. And underneath that, there's something quieter and harder to look at, a belief that receiving good things graciously is somehow dangerous, that agreeing with someone who sees your worth is arrogant. Here's what nobody tells you. The way you receive a compliment tells people how you see yourself, and how you see yourself, they come to mirror. If you consistently dismiss their positive assessments, they begin, slowly, subtly, to question those assessments too. Receiving well is a skill. It's not about becoming someone who basks and preens. It's about learning to simply let it land. Thank you, that means a lot. Full stop, no hedge, no immediate self-deprecation, no pivot. Just a clean, open receipt. The space of 2 seconds where you allow yourself to be seen as capable, worthy, good, without flinching away from it. Maya Angelou understood that how we show others who we are shapes how they see us. When you receive a compliment with steadiness and grace, you're reinforcing something true, that you're someone who belongs in the good moments, not just the apologetic ones. Let people see you as someone worthy of their admiration, because you are. Behavior 5. You stop shrinking in rooms. You know what shrinking looks like. You've done it. So has almost everyone. It's sitting at the edge of a table instead of pulling your chair in. It's lowering your voice mid-sentence because you suddenly weren't sure your thought was worth the full volume. It's preemptively apologizing for taking up space before anyone has suggested you shouldn't. It's making yourself smaller, physically, verbally, energetically, as a kind of social insurance policy. A way of saying, before anyone else can, I won't take more than I'm given. The problem is, people tend to give you exactly as much as you claim. Body language is a language, and like any language, it communicates whether you intend it to or not. When you walk into a room like you're not sure you belong there, the room tends to agree. Not out of cruelty, out of taking your cue. You've told them, through every contracted muscle and apologetic gesture, what to believe about your presence. And they believe you. Stopping this isn't about becoming loud or performing confidence you don't feel. That version, the overcorrection, reads as its own kind of insecurity, just louder. What the people who are genuinely respected tend to do is simpler. They walk in, they sit down, they speak at their actual volume. They let their presence be what it is, without editorializing it downward. Seneca wrote about the importance of simply being, of not constantly performing yourself for others' approval. There's something deeply freeing in that. To stop negotiating your right to occupy space, to arrive and simply allow yourself to be there. The room doesn't need your apology for being in it. The conversation doesn't need you to preemptively shrink. Take up the space you've been given. It was always meant for you. Behavior 6. You end things that have already ended. Some things are over long before we let them go. The friendship that runs on obligation and old memory. The role you've outgrown but keep showing up to play. The relationship that drained to empty somewhere in the middle distance. And yet, here you are, still maintaining it, still performing it, still treating the ghost of it like it owes you something for your patience. Holding on to things that have already ended isn't loyalty. It's a quiet form of self-abandonment, and it teaches the people in your life, and the ones watching from the edges, that you'll stay past the point of reason. That your presence isn't something to be cherished, but something to be assumed. That you don't leave, because leaving requires a level of self-regard you haven't yet fully claimed. There's a kind of courage in ending things cleanly, not dramatically. You don't need to burn anything down or make speeches. Quiet endings are often the most dignified. A conversation that simply gets shorter, a presence that gradually withdraws, an internal decision made without announcement. This is no longer mine to carry. When you begin releasing what no longer serves you, actually releasing it, not just thinking about it, you communicate something essential about your own worth. You show that your time and your energy and your emotional presence are not infinite, freely available resources. They are finite, they are valuable, and they go where they are genuinely received. The people who remain when you've made that kind of edit, who stay in the spaces you've kept open, meet a version of you that has more to give because you've stopped bleeding energy into dead ends. End what has ended. Not with bitterness, not with fanfare, with the quiet dignity of someone who finally believes their presence deserves to be somewhere it matters. Behavior 7. You respond, you don't react. Someone says something that gets under your skin. Your pulse lifts, your thoughts sharpen. Every part of you wants to answer immediately, to match the energy, to defend, to correct, to let them know exactly what you think of what they just said. That impulse is human, it's almost universal. And acting on it every time is one of the quietest ways you hand your power to someone else. Reacting is automatic. It says, whatever just happened has control over me right now. Responding is deliberate. It says, I heard you, and I'll engage with you on my terms. The difference, moment to moment, might look like only a breath, a pause, a second where you choose not to fill the air. But that pause is doing something profound. It's the space where your prefrontal cortex catches up with your amygdala, where your considered self gets a chance to arrive before your reactive self makes decisions it will later regret. Epictetus built nearly his entire philosophy around this gap. Between what happens and what you do about it lives a space of freedom. That space is, in fact, where your character is formed, where your worth is practiced. Most people never find that space because they're moving too fast. They react, then explain the reaction, then sometimes regret both. When you respond thoughtfully, when you pause, when you choose your words with even a fraction of intention, you project something that can't be faked, self-possession. And self-possession is magnetic. It draws respect, not because it's performed, but because it's real. People trust those who aren't moved by every gust of wind. You will not always get it right. The reactive moment will still come sometimes. But the practice, the returning again and again to that small pause, is where your worth gets quietly written, and others quietly learn it. 7 behaviors, none of them dramatic, none of them requiring a reinvention of who you are. That's what makes this both harder and more hopeful than it first appears. There's no single turning point, no grand gesture, no morning you wake up and decide to be different and immediately become it. The change is quieter than that and slower, and once it begins, more durable than anything dramatic could ever be. Because this is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more precisely yourself, the version of you that trusts your own word, that speaks without excessive apology, that can sit in discomfort without collapsing, that receives good things graciously, takes up the space it's owed, releases what's finished, and chooses response over reaction. That person doesn't announce themselves. They don't need to. The portrait you've been seeing across all 7 of these behaviors, that's what worth looks like when it's lived rather than performed. It's not loud. It's not a brand. It's a quiet, consistent pattern of behavior that says without a single declaration, I know what I bring. I know what I deserve. And I will treat myself accordingly until the world does the same. Here's the thing about that last part, and it matters. You cannot control other people. You cannot force them to value you, but you can make it very difficult for them to believe you don't value yourself. When the behaviors are consistent enough, long enough, the message becomes impossible to ignore. So choose one. Start there. Not 7 at once. That's the path to overwhelm. Just one behavior. Practice deliberately, until it becomes the quiet truth of who you are. You've been teaching people your worth all along. The only question now is, what lesson do you want them to learn? If something in this video quietly shifted something in you, let the comments know. Just write, "I know my worth." No explanation needed. And if you haven't subscribed to Stoic Mode yet, now is a good time. Turn on notifications, because what's coming next is worth staying for. This is just the beginning of learning to carry yourself differently. Thank you for being here. Walk steady.